So Keep It Anchored is clinically proven to reduce daily hair loss. But there's a lot behind that term of clinically proven, and we have the best person to talk us through what that means, because Mike Davis here was one of the scientists who was part of designing, running, analyzing this clinical study, which clinical studies can cost millions of dollars, take months, if not years to do. So why is it important to put technology through a clinical study?
Well, really it comes down to the proof. A lot of products are out there and they don't really have the proof that we took the time to get really for Keep It Anchored. And, we did a very extensive study to really show that these products actually provided the hair retention benefit.
And do you think that's even more important in this hair loss space, that there's proof like this?
Absolutely. There's a lot of products out there that have claimed to do clinicals, but they've not done the right controls, let's say, for the experiment.
So tell us about the study. How was it designed?
This was a pretty extensive study. It was a 6-month study where it was double-blind, placebo-controlled study. And what that means was that both of the subjects and the clinical site we used, did not know what the product treatments were.
So people came in, did they have any idea whether they were using something with this hair retention technology or not?
No clue. There was no concepts, nothing presented to the subjects, and everything was actually down to the point where we were giving them little brown bags to take home. So within the subjects, they didn't know who was getting what as well.
Okay. And tell us about the people that were in this study.
We recruited both men and women, ages 18 to 65, to be part of this study. They had longer hair, which was a requirement for the method that we used to actually measure hair retention. And they were perceived of themselves of having less hair than they did 5 years ago.
And scalp is an important part of all of this. Did you screen them for any kind of scalp condition?
We did. We actually, made sure that these weren't dandruff individuals, so they didn't have an excessively unhealthy scalp. But we did look and grade that throughout the study as well, and we did see improvements in the scalp quality as well as the hair retention.
So you talked about when they would come into the site and they'd get the product to use or different measures. What actually happened after they started using, whether it's the placebo or the test product, and they came in to visit the clinical site? What measures were involved so that you knew whether something was working?
So we deployed upwards of 10 measures on these subjects. First and more foremost, we measured the amount of hair that was on their head. And then we put them through a very prescriptive hair retention method that we built specifically for this study to really understand the amount of hair that was lost over 24 hours. Then we also started to take scalp measurements. So in controlled conditions, we took measurements about the barrier of the scalp, how healthy the scalp was. We're using a technique we call tape stripping, where we get biomarkers to really understand how healthy the scalp is. We took photographs of their scalp. We took photographs of their amount of hair that they had to really start to understand what could our products do with these conditions.
So is it normal that you find in a clinical study that you would have 10 measures being done?
I think this was the biggest one that I personally have ever done. So I think we had a lot of measures in here, and it took really a fantastic team to pull this together. So.
Okay, so after 6 months of running the study, what did you find?
It was great. I remember being so nervous when the study came out, but the idea that we did see a significant amount of hair retention, including more hair on the head. In fact, about 2,400 more hairs on average for each head of hair that we measured. We saw significant improvements in scalp barrier function, so the skin was healthier on the scalp. More importantly, saw that the consumers felt the same, or the subjects felt the same. That they felt that they had more hair, they had less loss, and that their scalp was less dry, which was really important pieces to really tie in this idea that you had to have a healthy scalp to really get some healthy hair.
So this was really painting the full picture, because this whole idea of reducing oxidative stress to improve your scalp, to therefore keep more of your hair, is a novel approach.
It is, and it's so novel that we actually published this.
You mentioned earlier that proof that this really works is so important, and especially when it comes to hair loss treatments, because many people have been let down by products that just haven't delivered. So if other products might be saying something about clinical or clinically tested, what are those clues someone should be looking for to really believe the results and the rigor that went behind it?
Yeah, this questions really went into how we designed our study. We wanted to ensure that we had a double-blinded study. It was placebo-controlled, that was of the length of time where it would allow us to understand seasonal hair shedding, for example, and look for a longer period of time to really understand what the true efficacy would be. We did this in conjunction with dermatologists, so this was a credentialed study that allowed us to actually demonstrate the product efficacy.
Mm-hmm. And the time of year, as you mentioned, is important.
Absolutely.
Can you explain why that matters? It might be a bit of a surprise to people.
It is. It's always, I remember the first time I read that, it was a bit of a surprise, the idea that we as humans still shed hair seasonally, and that we tend to lose more hair towards the late summer, early fall. So when we designed the study, we wanted to make sure that we ran the study, that 6 months, that 6 month of the study was run over that period of time, so we could understand that seasonal shedding.
Mm-hmm. And what did you see with the technology behind Keep It Anchored?
We definitely saw a suppression of the seasonal hair shedding. So that was a very astounding idea, that we don't have to live with that seasonal loss of hair.
Good advice to start early, start before summer hair issues kick in so that you can keep more throughout the fall and then the rest of the year.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, if you could sum up this study and what makes it stand out to you, you've been doing research for decades in hair and in scalp and understanding hair loss. How would you describe what makes this unique?
It worked, and we were very happy with that idea. We were just as blinded as the subjects and the operators. So until we got to see the data, we were wondering too, and we were very surprised that we got the efficacy that we did, where we again saw the hair retention benefit.
So is this normal in shampoos in general to go to this extent to prove out whether or not it works?
I'd say this was an exceptional study. I'd say we definitely took our time and definitely dedicated the resources necessary to do this kind of study. I'm not so sure that all brands do that.
Well, there you have it. A bit more about the clinical proof behind Keep It Anchored, why it's so important to go to these links to know for sure it's going to work to reduce daily hair loss, and a glimpse behind the scenes with the help of one of our key scientists who was the mastermind behind this work, Mike Davis. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jenny.